Yo, what's up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Today, I'm going to be grading every single NBA team through this point in the season. Every team has played around 27, 28-ish games, so we're a little bit over a quarter of the way through the season, and so I thought now would be a pretty good time to kind of gauge where every team is at. This isn't going to be just based on standings, by the way, so just because a team is higher than someone else in standings doesn't mean they're going to be higher than them on the list. I'm going to base it off expectations, kind of what each team has had to go through injuries, COVID protocols, where each team expected to be at this point in the season, to kind of all put that together to give them a grade. These aren't going to be the most consistent things. This isn't a science or anything like that. This is just kind of how I'm feeling about each team. So let me know what you think about your favorite team in the comment section below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. And we'll go and get into it. So starting off with the Philadelphia 76ers, they're a team that they're the 1 seed last year. They want to contend, but with the Ben Simmons situation, and they've had to deal with a lot of COVID protocols, it's been tough for them to maintain the same level of play that they did last season. Despite all that, though, Tyrese Maxey has shown out. Some of their backups have kind of shown out. Andre Drummond and Georges Niang look like two pretty solid offseason acquisitions. So I'm going to give them an A tier. They've stayed afloat. They've done a good job. Obviously, there are still some things they would like to fix, and I think most of that could come from Ben Simmons returning. But for all they've had to go through, I think they've done a good job, so I'm going to give them an A. Next, the Washington Wizards. They're a weird team because I feel like their expectations have been super up and down. Coming into the year, they seemed like a team that was kind of like borderline playoffs, and then they had that huge run to start the season where they are 9-3, and then they've fallen off a cliff. And because of all that, I'm going to leave them at a C. Right now, they're kind of hanging right around the bottom of the, or right around the play-in race, right around the 8-9-ish seed area. And so for that reason, I'm going to put them here in the C tier. They're right around where I kind of expected them to be. But with the play of Bradley Beal being below the level that I thought it was going to be, they've just been kind of so far this year. So that's where I'm going to have them. Next, the Atlanta Hawks. They've been super disappointing after a season where they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Trae Young continues to ball out, but despite him having one of the best seasons of his career, the Hawks haven't been anything too special, so I'm going to put them in a D tier. They have had some problems with guys not being available and all, but this Hawks team, even when guys are available, they just don't feel as good as they were last year. They kind of lack that spark that they had in the second half of last season. Maybe they'll find it at some point, but for right now, I can't put them higher than a D. Next, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're going to be my first S tier. The Cavs have destroyed all expectations. Mobley looks like a future defensive player of the year. He looks like he could be all defense this season. Jarrett Allen has been a stud. Darius Garland is showing out. They're fighting for home court advantage in the playoffs right now, despite not having Colin Sexton, who a lot of people looked at before the season as their best player. So this Cavs team is blowing away all expectations. They've done a phenomenal job. I have to put them in the S tier. The Detroit Pistons, I'm going to put in a C tier. Cade Cunningham has shown why he's the first overall pick. He's been having a pretty solid year. The problem is that some of their other young guys, namely guys like Killian Hayes and Sadiq Bey, haven't really shown the progress that a lot of people, me included, were hoping they would kind of show over the course of this year. Killian still kind of feels like around the area he was last year, if not a little bit better. Sadiq Bey feels like he's regressed a little bit. And because of all that, because Jeremy Grant is now out for some time, and just the Pistons, no one expected them to be very good. At least I didn't. They're right around where I thought they were going to be. I thought Cade was going to be really good. So this is right about where I expected them to be at this point in the season. So they're getting a C from me. Next, the Indiana Pacers. They're getting an F. The Pacers are bad. They're just bad. I thought maybe they could compete for a playoff spot. No, that's not the case. They are bad. They're doing a fire sale. Rick Carlisle looks like a bad hire of a coach, and everything feels like it's going wrong in Indiana, so they get an F. The Milwaukee Bucks, I'm going to give them an A, kind of similar to the Philadelphia 76ers. They're not quite where they want to be. I mean, the Bucks are like right there in the fight for the first seed in the East right now, but they want to be the 1 seed. That's where they want to be, and I do think they're talented enough to do so. They just dealt with a lot of injuries and COVID-related issues to start off the season. They're finally finding their rhythm. They did have kind of a weird loss to the Miami Heat without Bam Adebayo or Jimmy Butler, but you know, games like that happen sometimes. This Bucks team, I believe, when healthy, is the best team in the East, and so they're getting an A from me so far. The Toronto Raptors, I'm going to put it at the B tier. They're kind of right around where I thought they were going to be, but Scotty Barnes has far exceeded expectations. Fred VanVleet looks like a potential all-star. Gary Trent Jr. has been showing out. The Raptors, while being kind of like a play-in level team, have shown a lot of progress in their young players. OG Anunoby's having a good season. So shout out to the Toronto Raptors. I think they're doing a decent job. They're exceeding expectations a little bit in terms of player development, and so that's why I have them at a B. The Dallas Mavericks, they get a D from me. I thought this could be the year that they took a jump, and they haven't. Jason Kidd hasn't done a great job as coach. The offense feels kind of stagnant. They never got another playmaker, and so Luka still is carrying the playmaking duties almost single-handedly. Jalen Brunson has had a solid year. Despite that, though, some other guys have been struggling. Tim Hardaway Jr., for example, has been mediocre when you look at his contract. Reggie Bullock has not been the 3-and-D player they were hoping for when they brought him in. So overall, it's just been kind of meh for the Mavericks, so they're going to stay at D. For the Denver Nuggets, I'm going to put them at a B tier. No Michael Porter Jr., no Jamal Murray for the season. I don't think anyone sees them as a title contender at this point, lacking those two guys. But Jokic just kept them afloat. He continues to look like one of, if not the best player in the world. And they've had some nice improvements from some guys. Some of the rookies, Bones Highland and Zeke Naji, they've shown a lot of improvements as well as young players. And so they continue to get better over the course of these early seasons in their careers, and I think this season in the long run, assuming Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. come back healthy, could benefit them because this is added developmental time for those guys that may not have gotten as many minutes before. So the Nuggets, they're staying afloat right now, so I'm going to give them a B. The Memphis Grizzlies get an S tier. If you told me that they didn't have Ja Morant for well over a couple of weeks, and then you told me they were 6 games above 500 and that they beat my favorite team by 73 points, I would say you were crazy. But they did all that, so they're going to get an S. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they are going to get a C from me. They're kind of inconsistent, but they're right around where I thought they were going to be. They're super talented. I still think there's a lot more in the tank for this Minnesota team, but for right now, this is where I'm going to leave them. The San Antonio Spurs, I'll give them a B. Because, I mean, the Spurs are bad. I don't think anyone expected the Spurs to be great, but they've been super competitive in most of the games that they've played. DeJounte Murray looks like an all-star, and so the Spurs are exceeding expectations a little bit. Murray continues to be one of the most underrated players in the NBA, and so they're going to go in the B tier for me. The Utah Jazz will get an A tier. They're still a very good team. They continue to be so and fly under the radar a little bit because of how good the Suns and the Warriors have been. But the Jazz are right behind them. I'm sure they would love to be the 1 seed right now, but they are right there in that race. So they get an A from me. The Clippers are going to get a B tier. They've been solid without obviously their best player in Kawhi Leonard. They've done their best job to stay afloat in that time, and they have done so. They're in the playoff race, which I think as a team that's missing a top 5 player, that's really all you can ask for at this point. Paul George has been phenomenal over the course of this year. Reggie Jackson's played well in his new contract. You've seen some nice moments from young guys like BJ Boston, for example. And so, it's been a decent season for the Clippers. For the Phoenix Suns, they have to get an S tier. They are up there with the best record in the NBA, right next to the Golden State Warriors. Those two teams have been dominating, and the Phoenix Suns have shown that they weren't a fluke last year. They've always been a really good team, and even with Devin Booker out for a little bit of time, they continue to be ridiculously clutch. Chris Paul's an amazing leader, and this team is just super deep. 1 through 10, they're stacked, and they feel primed to make potentially another finals run. For the Trailblazers, they're going to go in the F tier. Nothing's going right. This was a year where they were like, okay, we're going to figure this thing out. They brought in Larry Nance Jr., Tony Snell, Ben McLemore, Zeller, some pieces they thought, could help them out a little bit. But instead, Dame has been disappointing. Pretty much all their whole roster has kind of disappointed so far. Robert Covington's meh. Yusuf Nurkic has been kind of meh, and apparently those two last guys are on the trade market. They should have made a big trade, whether it was CJ or Dame or one of those other pieces before the season. They didn't, and they're suffering right now because they stink. They're 11-17. They've lost 6 straight games. It's not been a good season in Portland. I think they still need to blow it up. They clearly don't think so, but I do think a big trade is going to have to come at some point, or this thing is going to continue to get worse. Next, the Sacramento Kings. I'm going to put them at a D tier. They've been, once again, meh, but I didn't expect them to be very good. They still, though, De'Aaron Fox has kind of dropped back a little bit, as like a lot of players have so far this year. They just feel like they're stuck right now. They did fire Luke Walton, which is, a big plus. That is something good that they've done. But it feels like a big trade needs to come for the Sacramento Kings. I think one is going to come, whether it's Buddy Hield, some of their young guards, whatever. Something needs to change in Sacramento because everything feels stale. For the New York Knicks, I'm going to put them at an... Do I want to put them at an F or a D tier? I'm going to put them at a D. They have been struggling pretty badly. Their 2 big offseason acquisitions in Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier have not shown the potential that they thought they could. Kemba Walker's not even playing anymore, and Evan Fournier is not living up to his contract at all. Emmanuel Quickley's in a sophomore slump. Julius Randle's been meh. They've fallen off a cliff completely. They are kind of a play-in level team right now, if not even lower. It feels like they've just made a big step back after that big season last year, and they look nothing like the same team. They can't guard anyone. The New Orleans Pelicans. It's not really been their fault with Zion not being there. I'm going to give them a D. It's not their fault that Zion's not been there. I think when Zion plays, this team is much better, but they suck. I don't really think it's their fault, but even without Zion, it feels like this team's just been super underwhelming. I thought this could be a year where they make a jump to the play-in tournament. Instead, they're one of the worst teams in the NBA, and even without Zion, it feels like they should be better than this, and so they're going to stay at the D tier. The Charlotte Hornets, I'm going to give them a... I'll go with an A so far. They've dealt with a lot. They've had like 8 guys in COVID protocols recently, and they're still staying afloat. They've had a good season. They were a team that a lot of people, me included, thought would be right around the play-in kind of tier, but they've been better than that so far. LaMelo's looked great. Miles Bridges' development has been super great for them to see. I think this Hornets team is trending in the right direction, so they're going to get an A from me. For the Houston Rockets, I'm going to give them a C. They're kind of around where I thought they would be, if not a little bit better. But Jalen Green hasn't been great in the games that he's played. He has missed a lot of time, and so that's not super fair to him to say that he's having a bad rookie season, because he's missed a lot of crucial developmental time with that injury. Alperen Şengün looks like a solid player. Christian Woods had some good moments. They had that big win streak after that big losing streak. So I think average is right around where I would put them over this recent stretch. For the Miami Heat, I'm going to put them in the... I'll put them in the B tier for right now. They are missing Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo recently, which is a big loss. When they are fully healthy, they have looked pretty good. But I don't know. I just thought maybe they would click a little bit more than they have. Duncan Robinson has not been the player that they were hoping he would be. Their bench feels pretty weak. They've been a little worse than I thought they were going to be up to this point, so I'm going to give them a B. The Chicago Bulls, they get an... I'll go with an A. I'll go with an A just because mainly Nikola Vucevic has been pretty disappointing. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, they've all been solid. But Nikola Vucevic is supposed to be a big part of that team, and the way that he's kind of disappointed, it just makes me wonder if he was playing better, where this team would be at. They already are the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. I'm gonna give them an S. When I say that 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference for a team that a lot of people thought would be kind of around the play-in, they've earned an S tier, especially losing a guy like Patrick Williams for the season. They've done a good job to stay afloat. The Brooklyn Nets are going to get an S tier because James Harden has not been great, and Kyrie Irving hasn't played, and they're still the 1 seed. So Joe Harris has also missed some time. They're doing a great job of staying afloat. Of course, their offseason acquisition, Patty Mills, the big one, has really helped kind of stabilize things in the absence of Kyrie Irving. He's been phenomenal for them so far, and so I'm going to leave them at an S tier. For the Thunder, I'll go with C tier for us. We're right around where I thought we were going to be. Shea is having a bit of a down season compared to last year due to less talent around him. Lou Dort is having a great season. He has improved a lot. Josh Giddey has been pretty solid. He's been right around kind of where I pictured him coming into the year. There's been some ups and downs. Of course, the 73-point loss is nothing to... We can't leave that out. It happened. But for right now, I'm going to leave them here in this tier. I think this is a pretty good spot for us. We've been right around where I thought. Some good progression. And of course, just some ups and downs for a team that is super young and is still in a rebuild. Golden State Warriors are an S tier. I don't have to explain that. I don't think. Steph's been amazing. And they are up there at the top of the Western Conference. For the Boston Celtics, I'm going to put them at a C tier. Jaylen Brown's missed some time. Jason Tatum is finally finding his groove, but they're hovering right around 500. It feels like there's a move coming for this team. I don't quite know what it is, but it feels like something needs to come. For the Los Angeles Lakers, I'm going to give them a D tier. They're a team that I thought would be towards the top of the Western Conference. Instead, they're hovering right around the bottom 8-ish mark, and that's not where you want to be. Of course, LeBron did miss some time, but Anthony Davis has been disappointing. They haven't been able to figure things out. Rotations have been weird. Role players that they brought in have not done super well, and so this Lakers team just feels like they're not on the same page. Maybe at some point they will kind of figure that out, but for right now, they've been disappointing. And finally, the Orlando Magic, I'm going to give them an A, actually. They've been mediocre, and that's fine because they're a rebuilding team. But when Franz Wagner makes a super big jump and he looks super impressive, when Cole Anthony makes a big leap, when so many young guys kind of show their promise, I think the Magic deserve to be in this A or B tier. and just kind of the way their young core has really established itself, despite like not having Markelle Fultz or Jonathan Isaac as two big pieces of a potential young core going forward. I like the way the Magic are going. Mo Bamba has been fun. The Magic have just impressed me, and I've liked what I've seen from them so far. Jalen Suggs has been kind of hit or miss, but overall, it's been a pretty positive season from the Orlando Magic. So those are my grades for each team so far. Let me know what your grades are in the comment section below for your favorite team. I appreciate y'all watching. I will see you all later. Real one, say it back.